Our guest for this hour is already seated in the hot seat, and we're having a conversation today about the life and times of Mary Wangari. You know her name, you've heard her name before in terms of who she is and what she does, but she's here with us and she's seated in the hot seat today. Mary, good morning.
Good morning, and thank you for having me here today.
Mary is the Group Executive Director of the Equity Group Holdings PLC. Big positions, but apparently there's a story that started off really small, and we're getting to know a lot about that this morning. But to welcome you into the Situation Room this morning, CT always gives us a proverb, and the proverb is we come from Niger.
Yes, this proverb is very similar to one that we read from Togo. And Togo isn't too far from Niger. A piece of wood that has been burnt easily catches fire.
Yeah, I think I had right when I heard you ask difficult questions. A piece of wood that has been burnt,
yes, easily catches
fire. Okay. What I think is, burning weakens, or depending on what. I mean, if you burn iron, I think it gets tougher. But for wood, it weakens. So I imagine what it says is that the burning puts a blemish on your strength. It weakens you. So you become you become weaker and prone to more damage, and probably complete extermination. So that's what I think it means.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, we always asked, did I get the proverb right? Of course you did. The thing about proverbs is, and especially when we ask your opinion, it is not possible for you to be wrong. Even if you try to be wrong, you can't be, because you are listening to the proverb and you are telling us how it resonates with you. And many a time you will tell us things that we hadn't thought of. If we gave you our understanding of it, it would be literally
probably different.
Yes, and it will be our understanding. And a lot of it has to do with the experiences that we've had. So the proverb maybe ignites a little thought process that reminds you of something in your life or something you've witnessed.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Something you've witnessed in your life, indeed. And isn't that what we're here to talk about today? About your life and the experiences that you've been through that puts you at the position where you stand at today. So a lot of times when we meet somebody, we've met them at the end of our experience, isn't it?
Yes.
So in the 5 minutes that we've met you at the end of our experience. But there's a lot more to who an individual is and what gets you to that point. And that's what we're looking at today, essentially. You've written a book, and this is it. I'm starting at the end so that you can now take us to where it all started from.
Yeah.
And so you've written a book, The Village Girl, My Dream, Life and Legacy. I think it's interesting that you titled it The Village Girl, because you are sitting in a position, maybe the highest considerations of the corporate world, the financial world, the business world, and folks are looking at this woman who commands power. Give us a little bit of who you are and where all of this comes from.
Thank you, actually, most people have been more interested in the title than the content when they see the book the first time. And I think they ask me the same question that you have asked me. Why the village girl? And for some people, they are finding it very difficult to put together their thoughts about the lady they know. Some of them call me Lady Boss in the office. I don't know why. And the village girl title. And we had the same argument with my editor when we were deciding on the final title. So how will that be seen in the context of where I sit currently? But what I told my writing coach when we were writing the book is I just want people to see especially where I have come from. Because I was, for the first 19 years of my life, before the day I came to Nairobi University to start my LLB program, I had not left my village, literally, other than to go to school, which was, I was born in Nyeri. My three schools, primary school, secondary school, and high school, they were all in Nyeri. So I had literally not left the village until I came to Nairobi to go to University of Nairobi. That time I was 19 years old. So when I look at my life, it means the first almost half of my life, or let's say close to half, I'm 55 now, I was in the village, literally. So my experiences in that phase of life were in the village, just a young, ordinary girl growing up. For those who have grown up in the village, they know how that life is. And you remember, it's several years back. It's quite a while. Yeah. The village has since evolved quite a bit now, but it is what it was I was born in the late 60s and through the 70s. And of course, part of the 80s, half of the 80s, I was there. So it's about just talking about those experiences. I have said in the book that my mom was a single peasant farmer. So, of course, there were no frills attached to my growing up. I mean, even raising school fees was a big challenge, but she struggled. People came to help me, and fortunately, I was able to go through school successfully, but I also did my part. And I worked very hard and got good grades, and I qualified to be a lawyer. So that is the context. But I think the reason why I first of all wrote the book was I wanted people to see that it does not matter where you are coming from. Your past is in the past. It should not define the road you are taking into the future, the present and the future. And that has been my experience, because I was just a village girl, very simple. I mean, no connections, no networks, nobody knew me. You know, when I was growing up, for instance, I'm getting mesmerized here because radio has also evolved. That time we had the VOK, Voice of Kenya. It was the only channel available. And we had an old transistor radio at home in my mom's house. So that was the only media we had, because there was no social media, no Facebook, no YouTube, no nothing. Yeah. That's the context. But here we are now. I mean, we have the state of the art. I work in the biggest bank in the region, Equity Bank. Yesterday, we just announced the half-year results of the bank. We have done well, clocked about 1.6 trillion in balance sheet for the group, which is no mean achievement. So I think it's just been a journey of, reflection also, because that's why I've gone through the past, but also an encouragement to whoever will read the book that you can get wherever you want to get. But of course, there's work to be done. You don't do that. You're just sitting back and complaining, oh, I was born by a poor mother, or I was... No. There's work for you to do also to get yourself past those challenges, overcome your situation at that point in time. But also what I wanted to pass across is that along the way, you also meet people who are willing to give you a push and help you to get out of the situation that you have grown up in or you find yourself in. Sometimes the challenging circumstances actually come when you're already grown up, right, or when you're working, you have a business that you're running, but then you encounter obstacles. So it is an encouragement for everybody. You do not have to have gone or grown up in the village to benefit from this message, because it can happen anytime. Challenging circumstances come at the workplace, in the business, wherever. But Mary, so that's the message.
Yeah, you don't just work for the biggest bank in the region, you're the group executive director.
Right.
Right? And if we're going to be able to take these two images that we've created in our minds already just by that, there's a girl who grew up for the first 19 years of life in the village, a very simple life that you speak of, and then here you are sitting at the top, maybe one of the highest positions the corporate world has to offer in this sector. How do you marry those two? In the book, you talk about the experiences that your mother shared, simple storytelling lessons that you would get while you watched her cook in the evening. How did those experiences, those simple lessons that she gave you, like you said, not connected to anybody, worked hard, went to school, came out of school, graduated, started applying for work. How did those experiences growing up then affect future function for you?
Well, I would say, first of all, let me say that my mom, though she was not literate in the real sense of the word, I mean, literacy, sometimes we define you have gone to school up to secondary school, university, or whatever, master's. She did not have that kind of education. She dropped out in primary school because, remember, she grew up during the colonial time period. And like most families that time, she had two brothers. Her own parents had limited means, so the brothers were actually preferred for further education. One became a teacher. The other one went on to become the mayor of Nyeri at some point. So he was fairly educated, actually up to a broad level. So she did not have that education.
Yeah.
She didn't go much to school. She actually went up to primary school. But she could read and write. She could speak Kiswahili, although we used to speak Kikuyu most of the time. But she was my role model. My biggest role model was my mom, even before I met the others who later became my role models. And the reason I say this is because the first thing she did was to bring me up together with my siblings in faith. And here faith, I mean we were Christianity. Her dad was among the first to get converted into the Catholic faith because the missionaries actually came to my village, the Italian, in the first, I think around 1908 or thereabouts. So my grandparents were the first converts into the Catholic faith. So they brought up their children under the Christian faith. So my mom also brought us up under the same. Prayer for us was a daily thing. You had no choice here. You had to say the daily prayers. Pray before food, pray before sleep, before dinner. Before dinner, that was the catch. You don't eat until you say your evening prayers. So in a way that inculcated in me the Christian values. Now, if you want to break down the Christian values, this is where you get things like integrity, because when you look at the 10 Commandments, I think they cover the whole length and breadth of our lives. There's something about prayer, there's something about do not steal, that's integrity. Do not defraud, I work in a bank, so when I think about do not steal, that's the command to me. So those are the things that I learned when I was fairly young. A very high sense of accountability and transparency. You will see in the book where I've said that I lost a 50 cents change when I was sent to the shop by my mom. And then it fell off when I was running back home. Do you know she told me, go back and come back with the change. She could not hear anything. Where is the 50 cents? Because in her mind she's thinking, this little girl is becoming clever. She has spent the 50 cents. So she told me, go, come back. I want to see the 50 cents. I went up and down to the shop. Of course, it's lost. And you know, it's on the road. So how do you find that? That 50 cents was very small, tiny coin. I don't know whether you remember it.
I remember it very well. That's why I'm smiling.
So finally, one of the elders in the village met me. the second time going up and down the road, because now I'm thinking, where do I get these 50 cents from? I'll be killed by my mom. So he told me, young girl, you've been going up and down. What are you looking for? What is the problem? So I told him, I lost the mom's change. I'm trying to look for it and I can't find it. Now, I'll be killed. So the old man actually pitied me and gave me a 50 cents, which I took to my mom. And she was happy. Yeah. You have to take care of what is entrusted with you. So that was a lesson on its own. And there were many others, of course, in that respect. That accountability. So that is why I find that even now, my first point when I'm doing my work is a high sense of accountability and transparency. I am in charge of governance in the group. And the message that I spread every single day is that your success as an individual is built or destroyed by your accountability and transparency or lack of it. That is what I do every day. Just to make sure that as a bank also, we are living to the highest standards of accountability and transparency as a well-governed institution. Reports are correct, they are veiled on time, regulations are complied with. That is what I do on a day-to-day basis. And I must say that training that I got very early on has helped me a lot. The other lesson is integrity as an individual, both as a professional and also as as a social being, because you can look at integrity from those two perspectives. So that's another lesson. And she kept on telling me, Mary, that is what is going to define you. You must stick to your values all the time, irrespective of the circumstances. Because what happens is that sometimes when we come into these very modern settings and societies and we are mixing all over, we sometimes forget our very basic values that we grew up with sometimes, which are also very critical in any situation. So that is one caveat that she gave me. The other one was the one of hard work. Early on when I was even before I went to school, by the way, I used to self-teach myself. And my siblings, my older siblings, used to teach me also.
Yes.
My older sister, Sophia, and Matthew, they used to teach me even before I went to nursery school to count AB 1, 2, 3. Incidentally, that time we used to do the alphabet in Kikuyu. So they would teach me the Kikuyu version of the alphabet. So by the time I was ready for nursery school, at least I knew how to count, I knew how to do the alphabet and all that. Now, when it came to going to school, I was too young because I was 5 years. So I was supposed to go to nursery school. But I told my mom, no, I want to go to the big school. Now the big school being the primary school.
Yes.
Because I liked learning. I had enjoyed the lessons. So my mom told me, okay, let's go to the head teacher and then we will ask him to register you. So I went to the head teacher. And that time, I don't know whether City you remember, they used to do an ear test.
I read that part in the book. Yeah, that was interesting. Yeah.
So that is what used to determine whether you're ready for school.
So what? If you can touch your ear?
If you can touch your ear like this from the other hand, the opposite.
I might still not be ready for school.
You need to do the test when you are alone. So the head teacher said, touch your ear, and I did. Of course, I couldn't. I was very small, a very small girl. So I couldn't pass that test. And he told me, no, you have to go to nursery school. And I told him, teacher, he was called Mr. Wambogo. Mr. Wambogo, I'm ready. I know how to do the alphabet. I know. Do you want me to count for you? 1, 2, 3. He says, okay, count. 1, 1, 2. So I counted up to 20. And then I did the alphabet. A, E, O in Kikuyu. So you guys think it's a joke. But on the strength of that, he allowed me
To go to primary
to
school.
go to standard 1 straight without going to nursery school. So I don't know whether there we breached the law or the
No.
regulation.
In those days, you could.
Yeah.
If you are found to be bright enough,
Yeah.
you could easily skip a class.
Yeah, so they allowed me. I'm not sure it was in the regulation, but now that you say it was.
The regulations did not prohibit you.
Okay.
Yes.
So there was no, it wasn't a no. So
No, it wasn't a no.
So I went to standard 1. Now, what was amazing is that I did very well. And the teachers used to ask me to tutor the weaker students, even in standard 1 and 2. So we would go to the compound and write. I would show them how to do 1 + 1, all that. So that's how I learned. So my mom used to remind me at every opportunity, Mary, or she used to call me Wagari. That's my born name, my family name. I have nothing to give you. I don't have land. By the way, because we were living in her father's land, there were the usual disagreements and squabbles within the family. So she's telling me, I have nothing to give you, because even this land, there's an issue. But you have to work very hard. It's the only way that you're going to get yourself out of this village. So work very hard. And she meant it, because even when I got chores to work on the farm, feed the cows, feed the goats, do this, do that, she always made sure that she allocated me time for studies. Especially when I got now closer to the exam time. She always did that. So that also helped me to see why it was important, the importance of really working hard at school. So with the aim of getting myself out of the village.
Yeah.
Now, after this book, some people have asked me, does that mean that you hate the village? Because you really wanted to get out of it. So does that mean that you don't like the village at all? And I tell them, no, on the contrary, I love the village. My best moments when I take a break from Equity today, I just go to my village house because my mom is no longer there. She passed on 2017. So, but the house is there. So that is my best place for reflection, for meditation, just having peace with myself.
Yeah.
I love the village, and I love even the interactions with the people who are still there.
Sure.
It's a good thing because there are very rich experiences there. It's only that I do not live there from January 1 to December 31st.
21st.
But I love the village because I'm also proud of my roots,
Yes.
where I came from. And I'm happy to talk about it because I think it was a very enriching experience.
In life, certain things happen to us. One, they're not expected. Sometimes they're horribly terrible and they twist and turn our lives in directions we wish they didn't. Others are not so. Others are far more pleasant. Now, what are some of these things that happen to you as you are getting on with your career? The things that you didn't anticipate, you didn't expect, but which influence your life greatly. People who came from nowhere, you didn't know them, you didn't expect, but somehow they played a very important role in your life. It's called the role of chance.
Yeah. Thank you, Siti. Let me talk about one, I would say, encounter that really changed the trajectory of my life. I qualified as a lawyer in 1991 from the University of Nairobi, and then the School of Law. I was admitted as an advocate of the High Court of Kenya, and started as usual, like any lawyer would do. I was employed as a legal assistant in a legal firm by my boss, Mr. Kigano. who later became the Kangema MP sometime. And then I went on my own. I started my own legal firm. I think that was around 1996. Now, I loved practice. That experience of taking my briefcase in the morning with the files for the clients and going to court to argue their cases and all that. And of course, I did also some conveyancing. I loved it. I loved it so much, and it just made my day. But at some point, I felt like I needed to do more impactful engagements. And at that time now, around 2000, I'm thinking, okay, so should I go to the human rights field, or should I go to, the NGOs or the UN, or what should I do to feel like I'm having more impact in society than I'm having right now as a lawyer? But that's also I was also doing some briefs for FIDA, FIDA to support women in distress from the legal side, and Kituo, Chasheria, and all that. I used to support all that, but I just felt it was not enough. And I was also getting involved in activities of human rights organizations at the board level and other engagements. So I went back to do a diploma postgraduate diploma in gender and development, because I felt that will strengthen my knowledge in that area, supporting women. But just after I finished that postgraduate diploma, now I'm in my legal office, and I get a guest. I didn't know him, although I had dealt with Equity Building Society from a client's perspective. I was doing their conveyancing matters and all that. So I'm told there's someone to see you. His name is James. So I'm like, okay. So, I never used to give appointments. People just used to walk in. Like in a starter in a legal practice. So James walks in. Oh, I'm James Mwangi. I'm the finance director. At that time, he was not the CEO. He was the finance director of Equity. And then he tells me, so I just welcome him like any other client. So he tells me, Mary, there's something I want you to do for us. Us meaning Equity. It was a building society. I said, yeah, my office is open for business. So he tells me we have a big investor coming with, it was $1.6 million US, which was big at that time, 2002. And we want you to do this transaction. So I said, of course, I will do it. So I took the brief. And then he went. So he's left me the file with a contract that I needed to review. So when he left, I looked at the contract. And then I realized, oh my goodness, this is a brief worth $1.6 million. The biggest brief I've done so far in my firm is just about maybe $50,000, 5 million to date. Now you're talking about that time the shilling was much stronger, so the transaction was actually about 120 million Kenya shillings. So when you look at what I've done so far and what I'm supposed to do for Equity Building Society, I felt like, oh my goodness, am I going to do this? But then I figured, well, as a lawyer, the first thing you have to show is courage. Yeah. You have to show courage under all circumstances. So the first thing I did was I ran to the High Court Library. The librarian was a lady called Cecilia. And I told Cecilia, please, can you give me all the books on commercial law? Anything you have in this. At that time, everything was just hard copies. There were volumes and volumes of books. So she brought them to my table and put all of them there. So I looked. I am seeing terms in this agreement that I've never had, but I checked all of them. At the end of it, I was able to review and give an opinion, and we successfully closed that transaction. I earned my fees, of course, also.
Which was the largest fee you had ever earned?
Which is the largest fee I had ever earned in my life. Why lie? So that was the sweetest part of it. But then, what that did also is that because I worked very closely with Equity Building Society during that transaction, and we closed, and then there was a provision in the contract that after we finish that transaction, we are going to convert Equity Building Society into a fully fledged bank. That was one of the understanding with the new investor. So after the closure, they asked me, now we need to do part B. Phase 2 now is converting the bank from a building society to a real commercial bank, because it was not a fully fledged commercial bank at that time. So they asked me, can you do it for us? We like the way you work, so please can you support us? Because that time we did not even have a legal department in Equity. The building society was still very small. It was a balance sheet of like 3 billion shillings. Now it's 1.6 trillion. So you can imagine the size. So I told them, of course, I will do it. I love working with Equity. So we started now on phase 2. But then what phase 2 did, it was so involving, because there was the legal part of it. You have to go to the central bank, get the licenses, get the new bank license, then transfer assets and liabilities. It became a full-time job for me. And I realized I could not handle my farm appropriately. I'm not available for other customers. So I told James now, I have a problem. I have no time for my business, for my practice. What do I do? James told me, the answer is very simple. Just move on permanently. We are getting you into the payroll. I asked for it, so that's what I got. So I got into the payroll. Now this is 2004. That is how I joined Equity. So that was one of, I would say actually probably the most life-changing experience for me. That totally changed my career path. Because now I suddenly find myself now working in a bank after the successful conversion in 2004.
Yeah.
And it's a completely different ballgame. Now, from thinking as a lawyer, the way I used to before, now I have to start thinking as a banker.
As a banker.
And I needed to figure out, like, what do I then need to do to become the real banker or the lawyer who is also a banker, because, you know, banking is about people.
Yeah.
It's about growth. It's about performance. There's a little bit of legal from a risk management perspective, but legal is not the business. Legal is a support service. So I needed to become a banker. And that is what now I started from 2004, my journey now to becoming a real banker in the context of Equity.
I want to take you back to one of the experiences that you mentioned in the book. This is after your encounter with James Mwangi, and you talk about then, and I'm just going to read that, where you say, my first office was at Luthuli House on Luthuli Avenue in downtown Nairobi, a part of the city marked by a cacophony of hooting matatus, hawkers and loud music from the myriad of electronic shops that line up the street. This area was also notorious for petty thieves and hordes of street urchins looking for a few coins from passers-by. I experienced the first-hand of harsh reality of life in this part of town after having my wristwatch snatched near the busy Kencom bus stop by some of the street boys who panhandle in the area. You went on then to talk about co-sharing your property with somebody else, and you then got into a predicament, and the gentleman asked you, you said you're a lawyer, right? He said incredulously, his eyes narrowing with his exasperation. Yes, I answered in a shaky voice. Then I have never met one as stupid as you, he shot back. You of all people should know that subletting office space is illegal. Did you know what you were doing then? And how did that then shape what you went on to do later, which clearly you figured out?
You know, in hindsight, we are always wiser. Now I know it was very stupid. But by then, I thought it was I mean, it's just what I did. It was the most stupid thing that I could have done, because once I made my decision to start my legal firm, the next thing is you look for an office, right? We used to call it a kiosk those days. Yeah. So where do I set up my kiosk, legal kiosk? And this guy was a good friend of a friend of mine. So he told me, there's actually a friend of mine who has some space in Ludhuli House. So that's how I came. And the rent is only this much. I can't quite recall how much it was. So on the basis of that, I just bought my desk, that time there were no computers, my typewriter, and got a girl to be my secretary and started the office. I had actually not thought about who is the landlord, because my landlord is my friend's friend. He used to do a printing business, so he gave me a spare office, which I used for my legal firm. Now, when the auctioneers came that fine morning, is when I actually realized, okay, I pay this guy rent every month, but he does not pay the landlord. Although it also turned out that the rent I was paying him was more than he was paying the landlord, or more than he was supposed to pay the real landlord. That's why Congo thought I was crazy, stupid, whatever. He called me actually stupid. But he was also a good man, because he told me. So I just apologized and told him, I don't know what happened. So can you please don't take my table and my things away. So he told me, okay, I like you and you look genuine. So what I'll do is I will allow you time, take an office directly from me. Fortunately, he had other offices on the 3rd floor. And then I'll give you 1 month to furnish the house. Then you move. That's what happened. So I became his direct tenant. And he also became my customer in the farm. We became very good friends. So I think, in a way, I would look at that from a point of view of sometimes as human beings, we make mistakes. And we should not beat ourselves sometimes too much. Of course, sometimes we make very grave mistakes and the consequences are grave. In that case, it wasn't too bad. I mean, I was called stupid, but that was just about it. But I was able to get my way out of it. But sometimes we make very serious mistakes. And we have to live with the consequences. So first of all, we have to sort out the consequences of our mistakes.
Right.
But more importantly is make sure we have learned from the mistakes of the past, what we have done, either not optimally or the wrong thing we have done, so that we do not keep on repeating the same mistake. So if you make a mistake once, that's okay. You can be forgiven. You can get away with it. But if you continue repeating the same mistake, then maybe that way people will not forgive you. So that was my greatest learning from that very. Now it sounds funny, but that time it wasn't very funny.
Mary, what is it about you that you would say makes you stand out?
The one thing I would say is, and what I always try to preserve for myself, is my integrity as a person, my accountability. Because I have always, my motto is that I can be forgiven for anything else, any other mistake. But a lack of integrity is something I cannot get away with. And this is actually one of the messages, one of the lessons that I've put in the book for those who are going to read the book. Preserve everything. What that means is that sometimes you actually do get into trouble for standing by your principles and your integrity. But at the end of the day, the price is huge. The reward is high. And what we have also seen, I've also seen in my life, is that if you breach the rule of integrity, eventually things catch up with you. So you destroy your business, you destroy your career, even if you had done so much, put in so much effort in terms of building it. But one mistake, this is a simple or small or big scandal, And we have seen it happen. I mean, in the media, you report these things every day.
Yep.
Someone was up there, they have built a serious career or a big business, and then just one mistake, integrity, it all collapses. Nobody wants to talk to you. No one wants to buy from you because of that.
Did you ever ask Mr. Mwangi why it is he decided to give you that break?
To come to the bank?
Sorry, Dr. Mwangi. Did you ever ask him not to come to the bank? No. To come to the bank came later. When he came to your office, when you didn't expect him and offered you and said, we've got this thing.
Just get on the payroll.
Did you ever ask him why it is? Because I am certain that
he had many lawyers on the panel.
It is not possible to have a business of that nature and not have other lawyers.
Yeah, that's true. They had a lot of lawyers, and I've asked him several times. He laughs it off when I asked him. And finally I asked him, okay, could it be that you are looking for a lawyer that Equity could afford? At that time. So he smiles.
Yes.
He has not said yes or no to that question. Very direct. But you know why he came to me? He asked his colleagues. I used to deal with his colleagues in the bank, the head of credit then, and he's called Ambrose, and the other one was in operations, Gerard. And he told them, I need a lawyer. Who can we recommend? And because I had worked with this lawyer, these bank officers for a while, they liked my work, my timeliness in submitting documents, error-free documents, follow-up of issues, good service to the customers that they were sending to me. They actually recommended me to him. So when he came to my office, he had been referred by them because they also knew where my office was and what I was doing, which to me is a strong point about others advocating for you. Others advocating for you based on either the service you have given them in the past or how you have carried yourself, or that's the way I read it myself. But there could be also that issue of we want and you should know who was on the other side. It was the top legal firm in the country which was acting for the investor. So, but I think, that time, to be honest, Equity was struggling. They were not doing very well. It was not like today. So
They were not the big bank.
They were not the big bank.
But everybody starts somewhere, don't they?
Yeah, exactly.
You see, when people think of legacy, I am looking at your dream, your life, and your legacy. You see, people think and talk about legacy as though it's something that comes at the end of your life.
No.
And yet, legacy is not only aspirational, it's something that is built over time and it's acquired incrementally. Because what you've just described about those fellows you worked with, you had a legacy then.
Yes.
Whether it's timeliness, tidiness, reliability, you already had it now. That is what was built over time. That short time you worked with them, and it's what led to bigger things. Now, if I were to ask, if you've maintained those very values and qualities, is it then surprising that you are where you are?
No, I would say that, and the lesson I'm repeating to everybody, to my mentees and everybody, is that if you really want success, you have to work for it. There's no shortcut to success. These days especially, some people are thinking, if I know a big person somewhere, maybe they'll connect me. And no, it's not a laughing matter, because we have people who come to work. And then you realize this person, they will not serve the customer properly. They will be rude to the customers. They will not submit their reports on time. So the work is what we call shoddy. They don't go very far. So it doesn't matter who you know or where you came from. You have to put in the hours and you have to deliver according to expectations. And this one is even if you're employed or if you're running your own business, your own enterprise, or even like you guys here, your listeners have expectations, so you have to deliver it to them. Otherwise, no one will want to watch, no one will want to listen.
Exactly.
So that's my number one rule. Yeah, and that is what I'm telling people. First of all, focus. Strong sense of purpose, because if you believe in what you do passionately, you will do it well.
Indeed.
And you will stop at nothing to deliver it. That has been my principle throughout.
The Village Girl, My Dream, Life and Legacy. Mary Wangari, thank you so much for being our guest on The Situation Room this morning. Great lessons, great experiences put into one book. Asante Sana.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me doing City.
Asante.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure.
This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.